Hello, and welcome to our webinar, Because Black Women, How Art and Story Bring Two Civil Rights Icons to Life for Young Readers. I'm Sarah Hunter, Books for Youth and Graphic Novels Editor at Booklist. Before we begin, I'd like to go over some technical details. Links to today's slide presentation and title list were included in the reminder email you received from Zoom 1 hour ago. To download them, please open that email, scroll to the bottom, and click on the links located there. You can also download the slides and title list by copying the URLs on this screen into your web browser. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. On the bottom of your screen is a toolbar with a section for Q&A. If you have a question or need technical assistance, simply click Q&A and type your message into the box that appears. We will do our best to respond to all tech-related questions, and we'll pass along all other questions to today's panelists so they can follow up with you after the webinar. Last but not least, Booklist offers closed captioning on all webinars. To enable or disable captions on your screen, please look for and click the live transcript icon on the toolbar mentioned above. From there, you can select Show or Hide Subtitles from the menu that appears. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting Subtitle Settings. Today, we'll have the pleasure of hearing from some very special guests, but first let's meet our moderator, Vera Ahiyya. Vera was born in Germany and raised in El Paso, Texas. Originally a pre-med student, Vera realized her calling as an educator at Austin College in Sherman, Texas, where she majored in history and psychology and earned her MA in education. Vera has taught kindergarten and first grade for the last 15 years and has an online presence dedicated to influencing other educators by spreading her vast knowledge and love of diverse children's books. Vera lives in Brooklyn with her husband, Linnell, and her dog, Mosey. Her first book, You Have a Voice, comes out on December 6th, 2021. Thank you so much for joining us today, Vera. Take it away.
Hello, I am so happy to be here talking to some amazing authors and illustrators. Thank you so much for asking me to moderate this event. It always is such a pleasure to learn so much. So let's get started. When Chicago native Traci Todd was born, her father decided her initials should stand for dynamite, just like his. He raised her on Ray Charles and Nina Simone, and her mother read her every good book. Tracey grew up to be a children's book editor and currently lives in Jackson Heights, Queens, where she writes, edits, and listens to Ray Charles and Nina Simone while her partner draws comic books. Christian Robinson received a Caldecott Honor and a Coretta Scott King Illustrator Honor for his art in Last Stop on Market Street. He is the author and illustrator of the picture books Another and You Matter, and he has illustrated many more, including Carmela, Full of Wishes, the Gaston and Friends series, School's First Day of School, and The Smallest Girl in the Smallest Grade. They are both here today to talk a bit about Nina, a story of Nina Simone.
Thank you, Vera. And thank you everyone for coming. It's such a pleasure to be here. I am from Chicago and I was raised on Ray Charles and Nina Simone and many others, but those are the two that really stuck with me. And my father used to tell a story about when he first heard Nina Simone. It's in the book, when he was at a gas station in Alabama, which is where he's from. And he asked the gas station attendant what this music was that was playing in the background. And I guess the gas station attendant had a record player. And the attendant said, well, I don't know if it's Nina Simon or Nina Simone, but the woman can't sing. And that story has stuck with me. And Nina Simone's music has stuck with me since I was very young. And when I was a young editor at Chronicle Books back in 2008, I had this notion of writing a book about Nina Simone, writing a picture book about Nina Simone. And I wrote a terrible first draft and I was too afraid to really show it to anyone. And I put it in a drawer, but picked at it over the years, and then finally felt like I had something that was worth sharing. And I did. I shared it with a couple of my friends. Stacy Barney, who became my editor at Penguin, and Steve Mock, who was my friend for a long time, but who became my agent. And then we were sort of off to the races. And then suddenly Christian said yes, that he would illustrate this book. And what a gift that was in that moment, and what a gift that has been. So this has been an incredible dream come true on so many fronts. And I'm sort of beside myself that I'm here talking to you about it today.
Yes.
And Christian?
Hello. Yes. Where do we go from here? So yeah, so that was awesome to hear some of the origin story of how the story came about. Yeah, and so yeah, Tracey, you make it sound like I was so gracious to be a part of it. The moment I read the manuscript, I was in love and it resonated. And I just loved how straightforward and direct it was, and just how it told her story with integrity and honesty. And like everyone else, I was just a huge Nina Simone fan. So I just felt it was an honor to be able to honor Miss Simone. So maybe what I'll do is just share a bit about how I go about illustrating a picture book, how I illustrated Nina. I'm gonna share my screen. Let's see if this works. Share. All right, and I'll enter full screen. Or I think I'm doing this. All right, hold on. Oh, play, that's easier. Okay, here we go. Woo. All right. So Nina, yes. So I actually took this photo in a record store the other day. I just acted like I owned the place. I just went in, I found a Nina Simone album and I just put it like so in a Roberta Flack album, and I was just staging, and the guys looking at me like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm good. I'll be out in a few minutes." But yeah, so just had to show Nina off in this little record store. So hey everyone. So yes, as a picture book illustrator, I feel so fortunate to be able to make pictures for a living. But making pictures for me is also this healing, sometimes therapeutic, sometimes stressful experience. But the thing I really love about drawing and making pictures, it's like this one place where I kind of get to sit and I get to focus on what's in front of me. And I love working at my desk and having a space to create a studio. I've drawn and made pictures my whole life as a way to process and to escape. This is my art studio where I actually made Nina, which is the garage right behind my house. I actually don't live there anymore. We just moved. Right now I'm in a teeny tiny studio. You can see my whole living situation behind me. But we're in transition. But my art studio was my garage behind my old house. And yeah, this is my happy place where I was just so fortunate to be able to wake up every day and think about what I'm gonna create or work on. I usually like to work in the morning with my little tea. And I think in this footage, I'm just like grabbing some materials. I think this was from Carmela. But yeah, on a typical day, I'm just at my desk, sketching, exploring, just trying to have fun. I usually post on my walls things to inspire me, things by other artists. When I was working on Nina, I had tons of like just images of her and just graphics from her tours and her albums. And then I usually just pin the artwork that I'm working on a board so I can kind of see how it's all coming together. A little backstory, I was born and raised in Los Angeles. That's me when I was little, me and my mother. My mother was actually not my caregiver. My grandmother raised me. My mother, she struggled with addiction and mental health. So she was in and out of prison for most of my childhood. And so drawing really became this way for me to escape and to process and to have some control and say over things. I couldn't control all these circumstances around me, but I at least had some say over, the piece of paper I was working on. Okay, really, this is really silly. I'll be really quick. This is one of my favorite films of all time, Jurassic Park. You can kind of see it in that little VHS collection. It's quite magical. This is one of the greatest films of ever. We're in agreement. Okay, Speed, yes. Sandra Bullock, Keanu Reeves, classic. This may have been the groundwork for a book I would later come to work on, Last Stop on Market Street. It's about a bus, it's action, it's adventure, it's the same story. Cinderella, this film taught me so much, that you can, go from rags to riches, that you can get the man if you got the right clothes. So just really important values. And there's my Prince Charming, my boyfriend, John, who's actually an educator. He's teaching right now. That's our Greyhound Baldwin. He's a retired race dog. He's actually sleeping behind me. There he is again and again. Okay, so Nina, when I was working on this book, it all began with Tracy's amazing words that inspired me. I, of course, had to dive into just Nina's life. So I looked at just so many films, that beautiful documentary about her, what happened to Miss Simone, but just lots of imagery. And this is my little sketchbook. I'm always trying to think about where the words will go on the page, how to tell, since there were so many layers to her story. There's the historic part and then there's her personal part. So for me, it was all about trying to weave those together. And also just, I put a lot of focus on the piano. And I always like to let young people know that it's okay to make mistakes. I make tons of them. This is typically what my desk looks like. It's just filled of sketches and drawings and things that didn't quite work out. So I'm always just kind of redoing. And I'm sure, and that's the same for writing, right, Tracy? Oh, you're on mute. Yeah.
I am on mute. Yes, very much the case. The same thing for writing. And there were many, many drafts of this manuscript over the 10 years that it took me to get it publishable.
And then, yeah, I just had a lot of fun trying to figure out how I was gonna present Nina. I kind of ended up using like acrylic paint and cut out pieces of paper. Yeah, I wanted you to see those brush strokes and to give that raw texture. It felt like in tune with Nina's spirit. Yeah, I won't say I had a lot of fun working on this book. I did enjoy myself, but it's a heavy, it deals with some heavy subject matter. I was working on this book during the pandemic, and during all this like racial unrest and injustice that we're seeing. It was the summer of 2020. So it was difficult to, I guess, take in all that and also work on a project that was kind of showing those threads between what was happening today and what happened then. But it was also a place for inspiration. Like Nina's legacy was inspiring, just seeing how she overcame and dealt with so many traumatic things. Yeah. How was it for you, Tracy? Like going there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it was, I knew that I wanted to tell a really personal story, that I didn't want to just sort of have a timeline of events. And I wasn't sure how far I could go, like how much was too much. But my editor was very good about telling me not to be afraid and to tell the truth. And once I got to the point where I realized that I was building to Nina's activism, that is what the story was going to be about, then the rest of the story before that sort of fell into place and it sort of came easier. But as we've discussed, I was also working on edits last summer during all of the upheaval that you mentioned, and changed the ending because of it, because I just felt like I wanted to end the book hopefully. And also I wanted Black children in particular to feel empowered and to feel seen and affirmed. So that's why I ended the book with the last line, which takes a line from Young, Gifted, and Black. and addresses Black children directly with hope.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love how it comes together, and at the end, and yeah, and I think I remember when that change happened, because I think I was still creating the artwork, right?
You
And
had created the artwork. So
mhm,
that piece was, I don't remember what was there before.
I don't either. But we ended it with Nina bowing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There
Yeah.
she is. Wait, I guess I have to talk so that you can see. All right, no, it doesn't work that way. I don't know. Yeah.
This image is one of the most, when I first saw the sketch, it sort of rocked me back on my feet, and then to see it in color. This is the image after the 16th Street church bombing in Birmingham, after the KKK destroyed that church, and these 4 lives, the 4 girls who were killed in that bombing. And here they are sort of in spirit around Nina as she's playing, as she's sort of rising to the occasion of her activism because of her just great despair and anger. And I think one of the things that's really powerful to me, most powerful to me about this, is that I really wanted to talk about the trauma and the difficulties she had and faced as a child that led her to become an activist. And so here she is, sort of on the dawn of her activism, surrounded by these little girls who look almost the same age as she did early on in the book. I think it's stunning.
And that again reminds me of like what I found inspiring about what I find inspiring about Nina's story is that, you know, we think of her as this pillar of strength and this icon and this just, you know, a force. But through this story, we get to see, you know, she was deeply affected by all the things that were happening in her life. And she had to choose to, you know, fight and to survive. But there was a cost, you know, there is a cost to that kind of trauma. And there's also something special. I remember when you were writing this, I think an edit that later came was mentioning the names of each of those girls, which feels really in tune with what we do now when we're seeing something, when we lose someone to violence, to police brutality, we now say their name or, you know, or to hate. And so this felt, yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely a later edit. And that's what I had in my mind, say their names.
Yeah. And, you know, I think like you were saying, you were trying to find that, to keep it honest, but finding that balance. How do you present this to young people? And for me, I guess I try to do that visually as well. I try to think about how I can tell this story honestly with pictures, but also make it impactful and show a balance. And so I just love these moments of that you include in the story of, you know, of Nina having these parents who were very supportive, well, not supportive initially, or who she was afraid to, you know, tell her truth to, but who inspired her to pursue music.
Yeah. And even though her mother was very religious and thought that the kind of music she was playing with her father was unholy and the devil's music, she came around and recognized that Nina was expressing her gift in the best way possible, so that when she performed at Carnegie Hall at last, her mother was there watching.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun just capturing the places in which she lived, and finding ways to infuse as much of her iconic style into the pictures as well. Even though the story, a lot of it focuses on her childhood, which I think is important. yeah, I tried to squeeze in as much of her style and fashion as I could. And I was really excited to make this very pink cover. Yeah, and it just felt right. The color pink is, I think, a special color. It's soft, but it's also bold. And that's kind of what I wanted to show. I wanted to show her as a full human with her vulnerabilities and yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you did that, because really in your hands, the pink is both bold and soft. And I think it could be argued that I channeled more of Nina's sort of anger and defiance than I did her softness, even though I gave her moments of rest and in her childhood there, I think there were moments of joy, but mostly I think I illuminated the parts of her that were more defiant and unwilling to back down, which almost doesn't allow for a softness. But I think that you found the softness and you sort of amplified it. And I think in a way that I think is a great compliment.
Yes. you have me thinking, having deep thoughts. Okay, but yes. Yeah.
I love that. Is that a dove? Is that a dove behind her?
This was, an older version of it. I was thinking a bird or a dove. And then I thought like that kind of goes on with her hit song about birds flying high. But what I'll actually okay, this is probably too personal, but thinking about like hardness and her, what could be characterized as aggression and anger, I'm now in a place where I'm recognizing the power and the importance of expressing one's anger, and how anger, it's almost like, oh, it's loud. It's almost like a privilege in our society to be able to express anger. Not everyone gets that opportunity. Not everyone can feel safe to express their anger.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that was one of the things that I wanted Black girls especially to take away from this, that just be angry. If what you're feeling is anger, be angry, because your anger can be powerful. And I think we're afraid of anger, especially in Black and brown children. And I think, to everyone's detriment. But I really wanted to show, I think that is really a lot of where my mind was. I wanted to show how powerful and what a powerful creative force anger can be.
Okay, I haven't been checking the clock, but how's it going?
I mean, I could listen to both of you talk the entire night, so we'll just schedule like a personal call. But we're gonna move along. Thank you so much. That was incredibly insightful and a powerful closer look at your beautiful book. So thank both of you so much.
Thank you.
So up next, thank you. So we have Because Claudette by Traci, Baptiste, and Tonya Engel. Tracy is the New York Times best-selling author of Minecraft, The Crash, as well as the creepy Caribbean series, The Jumbies. She has also written the contemporary young adult novel, Angel's Grace, and 9 nonfiction books for kids in elementary through high school. A former elementary school teacher, Tracy does numerous author visits and is on the faculty at Lesley University's Creative Writing MFA program. Tonya Engel is an artist who has had studios in New York, Paris, Austin, and Houston, where she lives now. Figurative and full of symbolism, her work is influenced by both folk artists of the Deep South and contemporary masters like Frida Kahlo and Marc Chagall. She's also the illustrator of My Hair is Magic and Rise, a picture book biography about Maya Angelou.
It says the host has disabled me.
Uh-oh, wait, I can hear you.
Yes, the video.
We can't see
Wait,
you.
we can't see you.
There we
There
go.
you are. Hooray.
We made it. Hi, everybody. Nice to see you again, Vera. Nice to see you, Tracey.
So I guess I should start by saying like how this book sort of came about. I had always really been interested in Claudette Colvin from very early on, and kind of always wondered how come she did not get the kind of press that, say, Rosa Parks did, or really any other of the people who were dealing with the Montgomery bus boycott. And when I started thinking about writing something about her and starting to do the research for it, I realized that there actually was a book that was like just about to come out that was about her. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, sigh. I guess I'll stop working on it now because, when you have somebody else who's like doing that work and the book is about to come out, it didn't feel like it was like, worth it to still pursue. Although I have since learned that, you can always use other biographies that you can, like, everybody brings sort of a different perspective. But anyway, it was years later, someone approached me to do a graphic novel about her and Rosa Parks and like what their relationship was. And while I was working on that, I had the opportunity to talk to her. So she lived not far from my house. I was able to contact her. She took my phone call. And then we were communicating mostly via her sister as a go-between, because her sister does more of the sort of forward-facing things. She's very shy. So, things sort of come through her sister, Gloria. And Gloria invited me to an event that she was doing. So she was retiring. She had been working as a nurse for a long time in the Bronx, and she was retiring and going to move back down to Alabama. And so they invited me to that event. And during the night, there was dinner and speeches and so on. And Freddie Gray, who was her lawyer during the Montgomery bus boycott, got up to talk about her. And he said, none of this would have happened if it wasn't for Claudette. She was the one really who started the whole thing in motion. And I started really thinking about that, about what it was that she did as a 15-year-old girl and how that led to all of the other things. And then I thought of that, that story structure, the house that Jack built, right? Like this happens and then this happens and then this happens. And it's like, a set of dominoes. And I started to think about how I could put together a biography that kind of looked like that. And during the course of that evening, this is, like all swirling around my head. During the course of that evening, I was looking at her with her, I can't remember if it was her grandson or her great grandson, who was, like a really tiny little bean. And she said, she's like, a lot of really little kids like don't really know anything about me. And that's when I started thinking, oh, this should be a picture book. This should not just be, there already is a book, Twice Towards Justice by Philip Hoos is, for older readers. And I thought, oh, right, this really should be for really little guys. And that's when, the idea of the dominoes, sort of the dominoes kind of shrunk down a little bit. It's like the smaller dominoes for younger kids. And then the chain of events is like a little bit gentler, because a lot of the things that happened around that time and around, when she was doing her activism as a young girl are difficult topics to talk about with really little kids. And so, there are certain things that you kind of have to cherry pick to sort of allude to, leave the space for it, but not mention it straight on. But yeah, that entire evening like gave me really all of the information that I needed to make this into a picture book. I had already done a lot of the research. So I already knew the story, I already knew like all of the details, but the essence of what that story would be and how that story could be something for really young kids to read and understand, I got really in just that one evening of, sitting around, having dinner with a bunch of people who knew and loved her and listening to all of those speeches of people who were there, during that time, and her family, and so on. But that's basically how the book started. And then from there, I started writing. And, as Traci and Christian mentioned earlier, there are a lot of drafts. It's not a quick thing. And I feel like when I saw, Tonya, when I saw from some of your early sketches, that's when it really kind of came to, like, it really, really came together for me, because I didn't know what you were going to do at all. I was just like super excited, like to wait and see like, what it was going to be. And then they sent me the first set and I was just like, oh, this is going to be very painterly. And, like you have these very thick strokes and stuff like that. But even like before that, with just, what this was going to be, just like how you were laying it out, even like the whole Montgomery thing that you did with the map. I was like, I didn't think you were going to throw a map in there. That was really interesting and like really brought it alive for me.
Thank you. Well, you breathe life into it, and then I add, the illustrator or the picture maker does the other sort of, it's like the Frankenstein's monster. I plug it in and give it life. It's alive. That's, I think, my job. And coming from a fine art background, and sort of really, I'm just sort of entering into this whole illustration world. The approach to creating art for children's books is completely the opposite approach to how I would approach a canvas. I'm one of those artists that likes to be free and let things flow, and happy accidents, and a drip will become something significant, or a scrumble on the canvas. Well, approaching illustration is completely the opposite. You have to plan everything from beginning to end. And luckily you made it very easy. Your poetic approach to writing this book made it like a sort of poetic journey as an illustrator, because Claudette, and you sort of revisit this domino effect throughout each page. And it all begins with research. It's always really interesting how over the last few years, I've been approached to do biographies, but it just so happens that the characters that I've been given have very few images of them out there. Previously it was Maya Angelou. As a child, half of the book is her as a child. There's only one image that exists of her as a child.
Oh no.
So I'm like, oh my gosh, so I've got to I've got to create this timeline of this individual. So, that's kind of the approach that I created. I created sketches. What might she look like based on this one image from this angle or from this angle, or as a younger child, or, so your imagination is definitely something you have to trigger when you have such little footage of the character that you're creating, or the individual that you were speaking about with your images. And so from there, I thought, well, it would be really nice to see how myself I might approach illustrating Claudette Colvin, who, by the way, I happen to have never heard of before. I had never heard of Claudette Colvin.
See,
The
this
only
is why
person
we need to
they
have it.
talk about in school is Rosa Parks.
Right.
She's she's the one figurehead of the entire movement, and that's all you hear about. Imagine if I had known as a child that a 15-year-old had such an incredible part in changing history. I would have just, who knows
Right.
what I've taken that information and done with, just knowing that.
Yeah.
It's pretty powerful. A 15-year-old who happens to be, to me, like painfully shy. I found that similarity. I'm also painfully shy, so I felt like a huge pull to her personality. Like I said, well, if someone as painfully shy as me could get up and make such a powerful movement, then anything is possible, right?
Right.
That
Yeah.
was really impressive. The fact that this 15-year-old girl who is used to being a wallflower, that was my impression.
Just her.
Said, I'm gonna do something about this. This is just wrong. We need justice here. Who else is going to do it besides me? And I think at the time in researching, that's also a fun part of illustrating children's books that I'm just learning. You're doing a lot of research. You're finding all the details you can possibly find out about the time, the people, the clothing, the movement, the city that it's based in, everything that's going on around it. And you have to do it in a way that makes everything look so easy, like effortless. And so in doing the research, I learned, that during this period of time, they were calling on a lot of children and teenagers to come out and be on the forefront of this boycott, and among other movements, sitting at the counter when you're not allowed to be, or drinking from a water fountain, just making moves to change things and getting into trouble, like John Lewis said,
Yeah, that's good
necessary trouble.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that they would have been able to make things, to change things during a time when you were supposed to shut up and sit on the back of the bus and just be there, just let it happen.
Right. Yeah.
These children decided that they were going to make a difference. And, that is what initially drew me to, the excitement of creating the images for this book.
Oh, yay. I'm so glad, because that's really what I wanted to convey, is that, you can be a kid and you can still have an impact. It doesn't have to be like a huge thing that you do, because I'm sure she clearly could not have possibly been thinking that this one act was going to lead to this huge movement when she did it. She was just thinking, this isn't right, and I'm not going to put up with it. But
Right.
Just that one thing made this huge, impactful difference for the entire country, and that's the whole thing. Like, kids have a really incredible sense of justice, I think. Like, they really do look at what's fair, what's not fair. And I think when they react to that, knowing that they can just do that one small thing, that one small reaction to, whatever it is that's happening, and that it can have a really big impact. I think that's the important thing that
Right.
comes out of this, or at least I hope that that's the important thing that comes out of that they know that they can just do this little thing and that it could have a big ripple.
Can make a huge wave and change history. That
Right.
one thing. So that was phenomenal. That's my favorite part of the book. Just this little ripple becoming this giant wave, and it, influencing the entire country to make a change. This one young girl. Yeah. So
I want to know, like, how did you choose? It was interesting to me too, like when the color palette came back, and similar with Nina with the pink, like that was an interesting color choice for me. It happens to be my favorite color, so so that's fine. But like,
you mean that jacket that she wore? Yeah,
exactly. Like on the cover.
and the very rare footage of her. There's like 2 photographs of her as a young child. She was wearing that quilted jacket, sort of cardigan. And also in the book, there was a scene where she and Rosa are beginning to get to know each other. Rosa's taking her under her wing.
Right.
And they actually go back to Rosa's place, and Rosa's like sewing on this dress. The dress that she sews in that room, in that scene, is actually a dress that Rosa wore during, I think during the court case or something.
Oh my
During an important
goodness.
moment in history, she
Oh,
wore
that
that
is
same dress. So
oh,
it's a really
what a
fun part of
detail.
it.
That is amazing. Yeah, I mean, we would never know that, like, you know, unless we come to this webinar and find out these things.
Yeah. And I also tried to borrow some colors from that era, you know, some of those regrettable colors, like those mint green kitchens and hot pink bathrooms, and you know. And
Yeah.
I've never been to that region of the United States at all whatsoever. So I wanted to sort of, you know, depict what it might look like walking into a church. I mean, it's so much fun illustrating. You are creating these little worlds, but when you're illustrating a biography, you can't just go into the world of your imagination completely. You have to sort of reference reality and time, and that's also part of the fun, you know. By the time you're done illustrating a book, you know everything about the subject you're researching. And, you know, actually it's pretty kind of, as a self-taught artist, it's part of my education, my continued education, I take it as.
I love it. It's so great. Well, I want to thank you, because I don't think I've had a chance to like thank you for doing it. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, you know, as an illustrator, you always, you know, you really hope more than anyone else that the author likes it, because that's your baby. This is your baby that you've been, you know, like Tracey, she's been raising this baby for 10 years.
Right.
You know, that's your baby. How long were you working on this book?
I did not work on this book for very long. Actually, it was one of those things that came together super quickly, which is very rare for me. I struggle with stuff for a really long time, and this came together like in weeks. It was crazy. And I think just because I was in that environment and I had already done all of this research, and I had that night that was so inspirational of like how this book should go and what it should look like and who it should be for, I think it made it really easy to get it put together very quickly. But that is a very rare occurrence. It's not quick.
Yeah, and it wouldn't have been the same book if you had illustrated. I mean, if you had written it when you first initially wanted to. You needed to have
it never would have been this. No.
And that experience.
Yeah, this book would not have happened without me going and having that night. It would never have happened.
It's crazy how creativity happens.
It's true.
How it all falls into place.
Yeah. Hey, Vera.
Hey there.
Just like creeping and listening in. Thank you all so much. That was these chats are just so insightful. That is my Mosey barking in the background. I apologize. So there have been a flood of questions coming in. I've tried my best to try to organize them, but they're for everyone. But I, of course, have my own question that I thought I would ask all of y'all. Because this webinar is entitled Because Black Women, I wanted to have you all answer and finish this question or sentence. Because Black women blank. And I'm curious as to what you would put in that blank.
I would say I am here today.
Yeah, I mean, that's literally the first thing I thought. I was like, I'm alive because of Black women. I mean, in my case, not only Black women, also Indian women, but a lot of Black women.
Mm-hmm. Oh, because of Black women, I thrive. that's, I mean, that's the truth. I you know, it's Black women who taught me confidence as a super shy girl, very much like Claudette. It's Black women who taught me how to cook these Southern dishes that I throw down. It's because of Black women that I know how to love my Black child, you know, and how to bring happiness and joy into this world, even though at times it can feel a little crushing and insulated. The joy is from within because of Black women.
Okay, no pressure over here. I'll say because of Black women, I have purpose.
Mm.
Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you. So a lot of questions are in general, but some of these questions are specific. So just feel free, even if you want to add on to what the teacher in me is like, if you want to add on to what somebody else said. So Mr. Robinson and Miss Engel, could you have not been? Oh, what would you have been if you had not been illustrators or artists?
Okay. A horrible waitress, because that was my last job 20 years ago. And I would say the last time I spilled a margarita on somebody. Oh no, the last time I was fired because someone said I was making advances on their husband. I was like, you know what? Long story, y'all don't want to know it. Maybe I shouldn't be working in this field. I should be exploring the gift God gave me, and I never turned back.
I like the direction you just took and sharing what your last job was before you became an illustrator. So I'll say that also. If I wasn't an illustrator, I would be doing web merchandising, which I still don't really know what that is, but basically I was making sure products were online and offline for a kids learning toy company, Leapfrog. I don't think they exist anymore.
Oh yeah,
Leapfrog.
no, it's like
Leap for them too.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, so the same question for the Tracys. If you were not authors, what would you be doing?
Oh gosh, I think my dad would have made me become a lawyer. I think I would have had to follow in his footsteps, because I think his real dream was to be Todd and son, but I think he would have been happy to be Todd and daughter to open up a law firm.
I was a classroom teacher, so I taught second grade before I did this, and then I moved on to editing. So I was working for an educational publisher for a while before my husband was like, hey, you know, if you want to write things, you have to actually write things. So I would probably still be teaching or editing full-time if I was not writing full-time.
That's true. I forgot. I actually do have another job. I'm a publisher.
It's okay.
I thought if I took the question to mean if I weren't in children's publishing at all. But yes, I do have a day job as publisher of Little Bee Books.
Love Little Bee, love it. So another question that I feel like came up in some of the conversations is about palette or color choices. And so Christian, when you had talked about the very hot pink background for the cover, why the certain color choices you made in the book? Are they significant to Nina's story or your interpretation of Nina's maybe emotional journey throughout the story? If y'all could talk a little bit about like, why do you choose the palettes you choose and how that impacts our understanding of the story?
Yes. Yeah, so I shared a bit about the cover, what was behind that. A huge influence for me when I was working on this book, especially around color. I think it was similar to what you shared, Tonya, about the imagery of the times in which she lived. So Gordon Parks was my hugest inspiration. His photography, just the colors, just how vibrant and subdued they were. That's what I kind of drew a lot of inspiration from. And of course, yeah, you always look for those moments where you can use mood to draw from. There are a lot of moments in Nina where we talk about her anger, and so I used flames and smoke and fire to show that anger.
Emotions are difficult to convey with imagery, and I think you do such a beautiful job. I've admired your work for a long time, Christian. It's an honor to be here with you.
Oh,
with all of
you.
Someone asked a great question when I think Christian had the photo up about receiving, I think, your manuscript, Tracey, that the date at the top said like March 15th, 2017, maybe. This is in the comments, so I wasn't that sure if that was the exact date. So they were curious as to like how long is the process of a finished book? When is it actually finished versus when we actually get to hold it in our hands? If you could talk about that, anybody.
Well, I think, as you might imagine, Christian was busy. he had other things to do. And so I think that Nina took longer than typically the book takes, waiting for Christian to be available. And I think it really worked out that we were working on the book when we were working on it because of everything that was happening in 2020. It just, I don't know, it added a different layer to it. But typically, I would say a picture book takes a couple years, usually not. How long was that? 17 to now? 4 years, 5 years?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like ours came together a lot more quickly. Yeah, it was fairly quick because I think I finally gave it to my agent like at the beginning of 2020. And then it sold fairly quickly, and then you came on fairly quickly. So, you know, this was very
March or April, I think, of 2020.
Yeah, it was very atypical, I think, of a situation. And it was because in December is the anniversary of the court case, of the Supreme Court case that ended segregation. So we were originally trying to hit December for the pub date. And then, you know, we couldn't quite get it done that quickly. So that it pushed to January, but that was, you know, and I think that's why it came together so quickly, is because we were trying to hit that anniversary date. You know, 65 years, I think, I want to say. I don't know, I can't math. So, but you know, but like it's like a significant anniversary. And yeah, but I think that's the reason that it's sort of like pushed to come out more quickly than is typical for a picture book. It was fairly lightning fast. You know, it super helped that you like nailed it, like, you know, like in rounds, like you were nailing it. So, you know, that definitely made it a lot easier.
Well, I think that not enough credit goes to the team behind everything, like the team of editors and publishing
directors
team, directors, all of them are really good at what they're doing. And they at times when I might go off a little bit, luckily you don't see that part. I might go off on a tangent and they'll be like guiding me back, you know, come back to the light, you know. Or making suggestions about what could work better, you know, or like zoom in a little bit instead of such a far away image, or, you know, maybe it would be helpful if we can change the mood. I don't know. There were a lot of suggestions that pop up along the way that are very important in guiding my direction. And I don't think that we give them enough props.
You're right. I mean, they also had me change text. Like sometimes your art would come in and it would work better if, you know, like the text worked better, you know, like did something different. So like if it was a spread or like a one page or whatever it was, and they would come to me and ask, for text changes so that it would work better with the art that you gave them. And so that was something that and then they would say, okay, so we need, like, you got a week or whatever it is, you got to be quick about it. But that worked out really well. It really did come together quickly and very nicely. So, I mean, I was really pleased with the process.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I'm really glad to know that, because, if there has only been one occasion where the person involved in the biography did not appreciate what I've done.
Uh-oh.
And that was maybe the most painful experience. It was like, I think I have post-traumatic stress. Experience finishing an entire book, and then the author was like, oh no, I don't like it.
Oh no.
That was painful. So ever since then, I've been like, it's really important for me to get feedback from the author.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Has that ever happened to you, Christian?
Feedback from the art director and editor?
No, like if somebody didn't like something.
An author not liking it.
No.
Well, I'm sure the answer is yes. I'm sure the answer is yes, but maybe they didn't get the message and get relayed. Yeah, I'm sure not everything is, yes.
Yes.
Not with Tracey though, no.
Yes, I loved everything.
The next
She also has your tiger behind you. Your target tiger.
I know, yeah.
This is my cozy reading nook.
The next webinar needs to be like everyone spills the tea and we get all the like stuff we all just like are craving to know. I'm just sitting like on the edge of my seat. So I do think that we do have to wrap this up. Everyone is so grateful. There's so many messages saying thank you, thank you, thank you. And of course, we know Nina is available now. Can you remind us when Claudette will be available?
I know it's January.
Okay.
I don't know.
So 2022.
I think they said January 6th. The last time I heard, like the first week of January is what I heard.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I didn't think it was going to be that early. Yay!
Pretty soon.
So thank you, everyone. Very excited to have the opportunity to chat with you. Thank you so much for spending your time with us tonight. If you all will stay on, Rachel or somebody will follow up with you with some information about just how you can share more about these wonderful books. So thank you all and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Traci, Christian, Tracey, Tonya, and of course, Vera. That was a wonderfully inspiring conversation. I was very happy to listen in. Do you want more picture book biographies? Penguin has created an interactive book list with over 40 biographies for your young readers. Get reading now by following the link on this screen. Tomorrow, all attendees will receive an email containing links to today's slide presentation, title list, certificate of completion, and video recording. For more about Booklist webinars, be sure to visit www.booklistonline.com/webinars, where you can view archives of past webinars and register for upcoming ones like those you see here. Not yet a subscriber? Pair the page-by-page reading experience of print with the convenience of online access at booklistonline.com and lock in print, online, digital, and archive access by taking advantage of this special webinar offer to get Booklist for only $75. Patron-friendly, librarian-approved, and free with a Booklist subscription, Booklist Reader, Booklist's new digital-only magazine highlighting diverse readers' advisory recommendations for all ages, has arrived. To see and share the latest issue, which is currently free and available to all readers, visit booklistonline.com/reader-issues. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. One more huge thank you to our panelists and to our sponsor, Penguin Young Readers. This concludes today's webinar.